Rain drummed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of Victor Belmont's corner office in downtown Manhattan, casting shifting shadows across his meticulously organized desk. The weather matched his mood as he reviewed the quarterly projections. Something wasn't adding up in the Asian markets, and it bothered him like a loose thread on an expensive suit. At 42, Victor had mastered the art of control. Every detail of his life ran with the precision of the Swiss watch adorning his wrist, from his morning protein shake to his evening portfolio review. Belmont Industries hadn't become a global powerhouse by leaving things to chance, and Victor hadn't become its youngest CEO by embracing uncertainty. The intercom buzzed, interrupting his concentration. "Mr. Belmont, there's an urgent call from Mount Sinai Hospital," his executive assistant's voice carried a note of concern he rarely heard. Victor frowned, glancing at his calendar, pristine and predictable like everything else in his life. "I don't have any appointments at Mount Sinai." "They're insisting, sir. They say it's about Marina Oliveira." The name hit him like a sudden gust of winter wind. Marina. 8 months had passed since their paths had crossed, since he'd ended things with the vibrant journalist who'd somehow slipped past his carefully constructed walls during a charity gala interview. She'd been different, challenging his perspectives, making him laugh despite himself. But different wasn't part of his plan. "Put them through," he heard himself say, his fingers tightening around his Mont Blanc pen. "Mr. Belmont?" A professional female voice came through the speaker. "This is Dr. Rebecca Chen from Mount Sinai's NICU. You're listed as Ms. Oliveira's emergency contact. She's given birth to a premature baby boy, but there have been complications." The pen slipped from his fingers, clattering against the mahogany desk. "Birth?" The word felt foreign in his mouth. "That's impossible. We haven't—" 8 months. The calculation hit him with the force of a physical blow. "Ms. Oliveira experienced severe preeclampsia. She's currently in critical condition and has fallen into a coma. The baby is in our neonatal intensive care unit. As the father, there are some urgent decisions that need to be made." Father. The word echoed in his head like a gunshot in an empty room. Victor stood, his chair rolling backward until it hit the window with a soft thud. Outside, the rain had intensified, distorting the city skyline into a blur of gray and flickering lights. There must be some mistake, he managed, even as his mind raced through memories of Marina, her last message he'd left unanswered, her attempted calls he'd blocked. "I wasn't aware of any pregnancy." "Mr. Belmont." Dr. Chen's voice softened. Slightly. "I understand this is shocking news, but time is critical. Your son needs immediate medical interventions, and we require parental consent. Ms. Oliveira named you specifically before losing consciousness." Victor's world, so carefully constructed, so meticulously controlled, began to crack around the edges. He thought of the merger documents waiting for his signature, the board meeting scheduled for tomorrow morning, the carefully plotted trajectory of his next 5 years. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, he heard himself say, already reaching for his coat. As he strode toward the elevator, his assistant called after him about the board presentation, the investors' call, the 1,000 threads that typically ruled his days. For the first time in his adult life, Victor Belmont let the threads unravel. The drive to Mount Sinai passed in a blur of windshield wipers and racing thoughts. Every red light felt like an eternity as questions bombarded his mind. Why hadn't Marina told him? What kind of complications? What did someone do with a premature baby? His expertise extended to hostile takeovers and market fluctuations, not incubators and infant care. The hospital loomed before him, its windows glowing like countless eyes in the gathering dusk. As he stepped through the sliding doors, the antiseptic smell hit him, so different from the leather and cologne atmosphere of his office. A nurse directed him to the 6th floor, where Dr. Chen waited, her scrubs carrying the weight of recent surgery. "Mr. Belmont," she extended her hand, her grip firm and reassuring. "Your son was born at 32 weeks. He's currently stable but requires respiratory support. Would you like to see him?" Victor nodded, unable to trust his voice. As they walked, Through the NICU's hushed corridors, he caught glimpses through windows. Tiny bodies in incubators, worried parents hovering nearby, machines beeping out the Morse code of fragile lives. They stopped at an incubator near the back. Through the clear plastic, Victor saw him, impossibly small, with tubes and wires creating a technological web around his tiny form. His skin was nearly translucent, his chest rising and falling with mechanical assistance. "He's fighting, hard," Dr. Chen said quietly. "But he'll need surgery to correct a heart defect. We need your consent within the next hour to proceed." Victor stared at the tiny being who had crashed into his life like a meteor, demolishing every wall and plan in his path. He thought of Marina, lying somewhere in this same hospital, fighting her own battle. He thought of all the control he'd prized, all the emotions he'd locked away in pursuit of success. None of it had prepared him for this moment. "The forms," he said, his voice rough. "I'll sign whatever you need." As he scrawled his signature across the medical documents, Victor Belmont understood with perfect clarity that his life would never be the same. The rain continued to fall outside, but inside this sterile room, with his son fighting for every breath, a different kind of storm was brewing, one that would reshape everything he thought he knew about himself, about love, and about what truly matters in life. The surgical consent forms felt heavy in Victor's hands as he watched his son being prepared for transport. In the harsh fluorescent light of the NICU, the reality of his situation began to crystallize. He wasn't just signing documents, he was holding a life in his hands. "The procedure will take approximately 4 hours, Dr. Chen explained, her calm voice anchoring him to the present. "Dr. Rodriguez is one of the best pediatric cardiac surgeons on the East Coast. Your son is in good hands." Your son. The words still felt foreign, like trying to speak a language he'd never learned. The tiny infant, he didn't even know if Marina had chosen a name, disappeared through double doors, leaving Victor standing in the sterile hallway, drowning in the unfamiliarity of helplessness. His phone buzzed incessantly. The board, members, his executive team, his assistant, all demanding answers about his sudden disappearance. With mechanical precision, he typed out a brief message to his COO. "Family emergency. Handle the Morrison merger. We'll contact tomorrow." Then, for the first time in 15 years, he turned his phone off completely. "Mr. Belmont?" A new voice interrupted his thoughts. A nurse with kind eyes and gray-streaked hair approached. "I'm Nancy, Ms. Oliveira's primary nurse. Would you like to see her?" Victor nodded, following Nancy through a maze of corridors to the ICU. The steady beeping of monitors created a rhythmic backdrop to their footsteps. Through the window, he saw Marina, so still, so unlike the passionate woman who had challenged him over dinner 8 months ago. Tubes and wires surrounded her, much like their son. "Talk to her," Nancy encouraged softly. "Some studies suggest coma patients can hear us." Victor entered the room, the antiseptic smell mixing with the faint trace of Marina's familiar jasmine perfume. He stood awkwardly at her bedside, years of boardroom confidence deserting him. "Marina," he began, then stopped. What could he say? "I'm sorry I ignored your calls. I'm sorry I was too focused on quarterly reports to notice you were carrying my child." The words stuck in his throat like shards of glass. A gentle knock interrupted his internal struggle. Dr. Chen stood in the doorway, her surgical cap in hand. "Mr. Belmont, do you have a moment? There are some decisions we need to discuss regarding the baby's post-operative care." In the small consultation room, Victor faced a barrage of medical terms and choices. The doctor explained treatment options, potential complications, and recovery scenarios. His analytical mind grabbed onto the statistics and probabilities like a lifeline. Numbers were familiar territory. What would Marina want? He found himself asking, surprising both himself and the doctor. Dr. Chen's expression softened. "From what we understand, Ms. Oliveira was very proactive about her pregnancy despite the risks. She underwent every recommended procedure, followed all medical advice. She fought hard for this baby." The weight of Marina's sacrifice pressed against Victor's chest. While he'd been orchestrating corporate takeovers, she'd been fighting for their child's life. His perfectly ordered world felt like a house of cards in a hurricane. The hours crawled by. Victor paced between the NICU waiting room and Marina's ICU unit, marking time in cups of horrible hospital coffee and updates from various medical staff. Each passing hour stripped away another layer of his carefully constructed facade. Around midnight, a young resident found him staring out a window at the city lights. "Sir, your son's surgery is going well. Dr. Rodriguez wanted you to know they're closing up now." Relief flooded through him, followed immediately by a new wave of anxiety. This was just the beginning. The resident handed him a thick packet of information about premature infant care, recovery timelines, and potential developmental challenges. In his former life, was it really only yesterday? Victor would have delegated this kind of research to his team of analysts. Now, he found himself poring over every page, trying to absorb information about apnea monitors and feeding tubes, with the same intensity he usually reserved for market reports. Dawn was breaking when Dr. Rodriguez emerged from the OR, still in his surgical scrubs. "The surgery was successful," he announced without preamble. "The next 48 hours will be critical, but he's showing strong vital signs." Victor released a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. "When can I see him?" "They're settling him in the NICU now. Give them about 30 minutes. Dr. Rodriguez paused, studying Victor's face. "You know, most premature babies this age don't handle surgery this well. You've got a fighter there." A fighter like his mother. Victor thought of Marina, still unconscious several floors above them. He'd have to be strong enough for both of them now. In the NICU, Victor stood over the incubator watching his son's tiny chest rise and fall. The nurse, a different one from the night shift, showed him how to read the monitors, explaining each beep and number. "Would you like to touch him?" she offered. "It's important for preemies to have skin-to-skin contact when possible." Victor stared at his manicured hands that signed billion-dollar contracts and commanded boardrooms. They seemed too large, too clumsy for such a delicate task. But something deeper than fear pushed him forward. Following the nurse's instructions, he reached through the incubator's port, gently placing his finger in his son's tiny palm. The baby's fingers, each smaller than a grain of rice, reflexively curled around his. In that moment, Victor, Belmont, master of hostile takeovers and market manipulation, felt his heart crack open. Tears he hadn't allowed himself to shed in decades fell freely down his face. "He needs a name," the nurse said softly, pretending not to notice his emotional display. "For the birth certificate." Victor thought of Marina, of her Brazilian heritage she'd spoken about so proudly. "Lorenzo," he said, remembering how she'd once mentioned it was her grandfather's name. "Lorenzo Oliveira Belmont." As if in response, the baby's grip on his finger tightened slightly. Outside, the sun continued its rise over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. In the sterile quiet of the NICU, surrounded by beeping monitors and the hum of medical equipment, Victor began his first day as a father, terrified, overwhelmed, and irrevocably changed. His phone remained off, gathering dust in his pocket. The world of mergers and acquisitions seemed as distant as another planet. Here in this hospital room, watching his son fight for life with Marina's determination, Victor faced a truth he'd spent his entire adult life avoiding. Some things were beyond control, beyond spreadsheets and strategic planning. Some things could only be faced with an open heart and trembling hands. Victor's corner office felt like a stranger's space when he finally returned 36 hours after the life-changing phone call. The familiar scent of leather and success now seemed hollow against the lingering memory of hospital antiseptic and baby powder. "The board is waiting in the main conference room," his assistant, Regina, informed him as she hurried alongside his brisk stride. "They've been in there for 40 minutes. Mr. Davidson is particularly agitated." She paused, studying his rumpled appearance with concern. In 15 years, she'd never seen him wear the same suit twice, let alone one bearing the telltale wrinkles of a hospital chair. "Let them wait." Victor replied, logging into his computer. His fingers flew across the keyboard as he pulled up Lorenzo's latest medical reports, which the NICU staff had emailed early that morning. Blood pressure stable. Oxygen levels improving. Each positive indicator loosened the knot in his chest slightly. Regina cleared her throat. Sir, about the Morrison merger. Cancel it. I'm sorry? Victor looked up, his expression resolute. The terms would have required monthly trips to Singapore for the next year. Cancel it. Find another buyer. Regina's jaw dropped slightly, the closest to visible shock he'd ever witnessed from her. The Morrison merger had been his obsession for the past 18 months. Sir, are you feeling all right? Before he could respond, his private line rang. The NICU number flashed on the screen, sending his heart rate skyrocketing. Belmont speaking. Mr. Belmont, this is Nurse Patel. Don't worry. Lorenzo is doing well. We just noticed he responds particularly strongly to voices during his morning care. We thought you might want to come for his next feeding time at noon. Relief flooded through him, followed by an unfamiliar warmth. His son recognized voices, was learning, fighting. I'll be there. The board could be heard grumbling through the conference room walls as Victor strode past, laptop in hand. He pushed open the heavy doors, facing the room of suited executives who had, until recently, represented his entire world. Gentlemen, he announced, commanding the room with practiced ease. Family emergency requires restructuring my immediate obligations. Davidson, you'll handle Asia. Chen, take Europe. Rodriguez, oversee domestic operations. He held up a hand, as protests erupted. This isn't a discussion, it's a transition plan. Victor, Davidson stepped forward, face flushed. The shareholders will understand that even CEOs face personal emergencies. Victor's tone left no room for argument. I'm not stepping down, I'm restructuring. The difference is crucial for your next press release. He left them in stunned silence, already focused on his next challenge. The hospital was a 15-minute drive in good traffic, and he had a feeding to make. The NICU's automatic doors whooshed open, now familiar after countless entries and exits. Nurse Patel greeted him with a knowing smile as he scrubbed in, following the meticulous hygiene protocol he'd memorized. Perfect timing, she said, leading him to Lorenzo's incubator. Someone's been waiting for his father. The word still sent a jolt through him, but now it carried a different weight, less terrifying, more sacred. Lorenzo's tiny form squirmed slightly as Victor reached through the port, placing his hand gently on his son's chest. Hey, champ, he whispered, surprised by how naturally the words came. Daddy's here. A soft gasp from the NICU entrance caught his attention. A woman in her mid-30s stood there, tears streaming down her face. You must be Victor, she said. I'm Isabella, Marina's sister. Victor straightened, his protective instincts flaring. He hadn't known Marina had a sister. How is she? No change. Isabella moved closer, her eyes fixed on Lorenzo. I flew in from Boston as soon as I could. Marina, she tried to tell you, you know, about the baby. The guilt Victor had been suppressing resurged. I know. Isabella's expression softened as she watched him with Lorenzo. She also told me you were worth waiting for, that underneath all that corporate armor beat a heart capable of great love. She smiled sadly. Looks like my sister was right, as usual. Before Victor could respond, his phone buzzed. The office. Again. Isabella seemed to sense his dilemma. Go, she said. Handle what you need to. I'll stay with him. Victor hesitated, torn between worlds. His phone kept buzzing. Emergencies, crises, decisions that once seemed life or death but now felt trivial compared to the actual life or death struggle in front of him. Tell me about her, he said instead, silencing his phone. About Marina. About her pregnancy. Everything I should have known. Isabella pulled up a chair, and for the next hour, as Lorenzo slept peacefully under their watch, she shared the story of Marina's courage. How she'd discovered the pregnancy after Victor had ended things. how she'd faced every complication with determination, working until her doctor ordered bed rest, how she'd prepared a nursery in her small apartment, painting the walls herself until her neighbor insisted on taking over. She never gave up hope, Isabella concluded. Not on the baby and not on you. Victor's throat tightened. On his phone, messages piled up. Angry board members, concerned shareholders, impatient clients. But here, in this quiet room with his son's steady breathing as background music, priorities shifted like tectonic plates. I have a lot to make up for, he said quietly. Yes, Isabella agreed. But you're here now. That's what matters. A nurse appeared with a prepared bottle. Feeding time, Mr. Belmont. Would you like to try? Victor looked at his watch. 3 missed meetings, 2 conference calls, and a shareholder presentation were waiting. The old Victor would have been halfway to the office already, delegating this task to someone else. But the old Victor didn't exist anymore. Show me how, he said, settling into the rocking chair as the nurse demonstrated proper feeding techniques. Lorenzo's tiny mouth latched onto the bottle, his eyes fluttering open briefly. Marina's eyes, dark and soulful. In that moment, watching his son take his first bottle feeding, Victor realized that success had many definitions. In the corporate world, it was measured in stock prices and market shares. But here, in this sterile room that smelled of hope and fear, success was measured in milliliters of formula, in seconds of eye contact, in tiny fingers gripping his own. Isabella watched from the doorway, her phone discreetly capturing the moment. Marina needs to see this when she wakes up, she whispered. She needs to see that her faith in you wasn't misplaced. When, not if. The word choice wasn't lost on Victor. He looked up at the ceiling, sending a silent prayer to whatever force had brought him to this moment. Wake up, Marina. Wake up and see who I'm becoming. Who you always knew I could be. The elevator doors opened to Marina's floor in Brooklyn Heights, and Victor found himself hesitating. Isabella had suggested he visit Marina's apartment to gather some personal items for her hospital room. But standing here now, it felt like trespassing into a life he'd chosen to walk away from. Using the key Isabella had provided, he entered, apartment 7B. The space instantly struck him as quintessentially Marina, warm, lived in, with books stacked on every surface and throw pillows arranged in artful disarray. So different from his own sterile penthouse. The nursery door stood slightly ajar. Victor pushed it open, his breath catching at the sight. Soft yellow walls brightened the small room, and a hand-painted mural of stars decorated the ceiling. A white crib stood assembled in the corner, waiting for its occupant. On the changing table, folded onesies lay in neat stacks, each one tiny enough to break his heart. She painted those stars herself, you know, until I made her stop. Victor turned to find an elderly woman standing in the doorway, arms crossed. Her stern expression left little doubt about her feelings toward him. Mrs. Rodriguez, she continued, Marina's neighbor. I've heard plenty about you, Mr. Belmont. I wish I could say the same, Victor replied quietly, his guilt evident. Were you close with Marina? The woman's expression softened slightly. Someone had to look after her when the morning sickness got bad, when her blood pressure started acting up, when she insisted on working until she literally couldn't stand anymore. She moved into the room, running a hand along the crib rail. She'd sit in that rocking chair every night reading pregnancy books out loud, said the baby should know his father was smart, successful, a good man underneath it all. Mrs. Rodriguez fixed him with a penetrating stare. I thought she was being naive. Maybe I was wrong. Victor's throat tightened as he noticed the book stacked beside the rocking chair. What to expect? The expectant father. Your premature baby. Marina had been preparing for every possibility while he'd been oblivious, focused on profit margins and market expansions. His phone buzzed. Davidson again. This time, Victor answered. Make it quick. The Chinese investment group is backing out. Davidson's voice carried barely contained panic. They say without you personally overseeing the Asia expansion, they're pulling their $3 billion. We need you on a plane to Beijing tonight. $3 billion. 6 months ago, that number would have consumed Victor's every waking thought. Now, standing in the nursery Marina had prepared with such hope it felt meaningless. "Let them pull out," he said firmly. "Find another investor. Victor, be reasonable. My son is in the NICU. His mother is in a coma. This is me being reasonable." He ended the call, turning back to Mrs. Rodriguez. "Tell me more about Marina, please." Over cups of strong coffee in Marina's small kitchen, Mrs. Rodriguez shared stories that painted a picture of the months he'd missed. How Marina had craved spicy food at midnight. How she'd insisted on taking the subway to work until her 7th month, refusing to let pregnancy change her independent spirit. How she'd talked to her belly in both English and Portuguese, determined that her child would know both cultures. The day she felt the first kick, she was so excited she knocked on my door at 6 a.m., Mrs. Rodriguez recalled, smiling at the memory. Said she wished she could share it with you, but at least the baby would know one parent's love from the start. Victor's coffee grew cold as he listened, each story illuminating another facet of Marina's strength and grace. On her refrigerator, doctor's appointments and prenatal class schedules were meticulously noted. A legal pad nearby contained lists of baby names, with Lorenzo circled multiple times. "She never gave up hope that you'd come around," Mrs. Rodriguez added, "even after the preeclampsia diagnosis. Said sometimes people need time to rise to their best selves." A flash of blue caught Victor's eye. Behind a stack of pregnancy books sat a familiar-looking folder. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for it. Inside were dozens of articles about him. Business profiles, interviews, photos from charity events, and letters, each one dated but never sent, chronicling Marina's pregnancy journey. "Dear Victor," one began, dated 3 months ago. "Today I learned we're having a boy. I thought of you immediately. How you told me about sailing with your father, your first baseball game. Our son will have those moments too if you want them, if you're ready." Another, from 6 weeks ago. "The doctor says the preeclampsia is getting worse. I'm scared, Victor, not for myself, but for our baby. He's so strong already, fighting every day. Like his father, never backing down from a challenge." The most recent letter was dated just 3 days before Lorenzo's birth. "I'm being admitted tomorrow. The doctors are worried, but I'm not. Our son has your determination and my stubbornness, a powerful combination. Whatever happens, know that I forgive you. Some people take longer to find their way to love. I hope one day." The letter ended there, unfinished. Victor's phone buzzed again. The hospital. His heart raced until he saw it was a routine update. Lorenzo had gained another ounce. His oxygen levels were holding steady, small victories in a war that was far from over. Mrs. Rodriguez watched him read the medical update, her expression thoughtful. "You're not the man I expected," she admitted. "Marina always said there was more to you than the corporate shark everyone else saw." "I'm not the man I expected either," Victor replied, honestly. He carefully gathered the letters along with some of Marina's personal items, her favorite blanket, her well-worn copy of Pride and Prejudice, the small stuffed elephant that sat on her bedside table. As he prepared to leave, Mrs. Rodriguez pressed a USB drive into his hand. "Marina's pregnancy video diary," she explained. "She made it for the baby, but maybe you need to see it too." Back in his car, Victor stared at the small drive that contained months of moments he'd missed. His phone lit up with another series of urgent messages, stock prices falling, investors panicking, his carefully built empire showing cracks. But as he drove toward the hospital, the USB drive felt heavier than all his business concerns combined. It carried the weight of missed opportunities, of love offered freely and rejected out of fear, of a woman who'd believed in him even when he'd given her every reason not to. The sun was setting as he reached Mount Sinai, painting the sky in shades of possibility. In the NICU, Lorenzo waited, growing stronger by the day. In the ICU, Marina slept, her faith in him still unshaken. And somewhere between the person he'd been and the father he was becoming, Victor Belmont finally understood. Some investments couldn't be measured in billions. The NICU's private family room was quiet at midnight. illuminated only by Victor's laptop screen as he inserted the USB drive Mrs. Rodriguez had given him. His finger hovered over the play button, heart pounding with anticipation and fear. Marina's face filled the screen, her smile radiant despite obvious exhaustion. "Week 16, she announced, adjusting the camera. "Got the first ultrasound today." She held up a grainy black and white image. "See that tiny flutter? That's your heart, little one. Strong and steady, just like your father's business empire." Her laugh carried a hint of sadness, though hopefully a bit more open to life's surprises. Victor paused the video, running his fingers over the screen. She looked so vibrant, so alive, such a contrast to her current state 2 floors above. His phone buzzed with a NICU update. Lorenzo's evening feeds had gone well. Small victories. He pressed play again. The videos progressed chronologically, Marina documenting each milestone. Her growing belly, the first kick, shopping for baby, clothes. Through it all, her unwavering optimism struck him like physical blows. "Week 24, Marina spoke from the screen, now sitting in the nursery he'd seen earlier. "The doctor says you're going to be tall, baby boy. Another trait from your father." She smiled, touching her belly. "You know, he once told me his biggest fear was turning into his own father. So focused on success that he missed life's precious moments. But I saw something in him that maybe he couldn't see himself. A capacity for love that scared him more than failure ever could." The video cut to another day, Marina looking noticeably more tired. "Week 28, the preeclampsia diagnosis, came today." She forced a brave smile. "But don't worry, little one. We're fighters, you and I. And somewhere out there, your father is fighting too. Maybe not for us, not yet, but fighting to become the man I know he can be." Victor's phone rang, interrupting the next video. Dr. Chen's name flashed on the screen. His blood ran cold. She never called this late. "Mr. Belmont, you need to come to the NICU immediately. Lorenzo's showing signs of infection. We're starting antibiotics, but the next few hours are critical." The world tilted on its axis as Victor raced through the hospital corridors. In the NICU, machines beeped urgently around Lorenzo's incubator. His tiny body, which had been making such steady progress, now burned with fever. "Premature infants are particularly susceptible to infections," Dr. Chen explained, her voice steady but concerned. "His immune system isn't fully developed yet." Victor pressed his hand against the incubator's plastic wall, feeling utterly helpless. "What can I do?" "Talk to him," Nurse Patel suggested, adjusting an IV line. "Skin-to-skin contact isn't possible right now, but he knows your voice." Victor pulled a chair close, ignoring the growing crowd of medical staff around them. "Hey, champ," he began hoarsely. "Remember what your mom said in those videos? We're fighters, you and her. And now me too. I'm here, Lorenzo. Daddy's right. Here." The night stretched endlessly, marked by vital sign checks and antibiotic doses. Victor alternated between watching the monitors and continuing Marina's videos on his phone, drawing strength from her recorded courage. "Week 30, Marina spoke softly from the screen, now confined to hospital bed rest. "The doctors want to delay labor as long as possible, but this little guy seems eager to meet the world." She caressed her belly, her expression serene despite the medical equipment surrounding her. "I've been thinking about names. Lorenzo, after my grandfather, the strongest, kindest man I've ever known. Until now, I thought strength meant never showing weakness. Your father taught me that true strength sometimes means walking away. But maybe real strength is having the courage to stay." Dawn broke over Manhattan as Lorenzo's fever finally began to respond to the antibiotics. Victor had memorized every number on the monitors, every subtle change in the beeping patterns. "His stats are improving," Dr. Chen announced, reviewing the latest readings. "He's not out of the woods, but this is promising." Victor nodded, exhausted but unwilling to leave. On his phone, the final video waited. Marina's last recording, made just hours before her emergency admission. "I don't know if you'll ever see these," she addressed the camera directly, her face pale but determined. "Either of you, but I need you both to know something. Love isn't a weakness, Victor. And Lorenzo, she touched the screen gently. Your father has the biggest heart of anyone I've ever met. He just needs to learn how to use it. The video ended. In the NICU's morning light, Lorenzo's color was improving, his tiny chest rising and falling more steadily. Victor reached through the incubator's port, placing his finger in his son's palm. The grip was weaker than yesterday, but still there, still fighting. Isabella arrived for her morning visit, stopping short at the sight of medical equipment surrounding Lorenzo. What happened? Infection, Victor explained, not taking his eyes off his son. But he's improving. He's strong, like his mother. Isabella touched his shoulder gently. Like both his parents. She paused. Any change with Marina? Not yet, but I've been watching her pregnancy videos. Victor's voice cracked slightly. She never lost faith in me, even when I'd lost it. In myself. That's Marina, Isabella smiled sadly, always seeing the best in people even when they can't see it themselves. A soft alarm beeped. Time for Lorenzo's next antibiotic dose. Victor watched the medical team work, their movements precise and practiced. In his pocket, his phone remained silent. He'd emailed his resignation to the board an hour ago, keeping only a minority stake in the company he'd built. Some would call it throwing away an empire. But watching his son fight for life, remembering Marina's unwavering belief in him, Victor finally understood. He wasn't throwing away anything. He was building something far more valuable, a legacy of love, courage, and second chances. I'll make you both proud, he whispered to his sleeping son. I promise. Outside the NICU windows, New York City bustled to life, unaware of the small battles and quiet victories happening within these walls. In the ICU above them, Marina slept on, her faith in him preserved in digital memories. And here, between beeping monitors and whispered prayers, Victor Belmont continued his transformation, not from CEO to father, but from a man who measured worth in dollars to one who counted heartbeats as his most precious currency. 2 weeks had passed since Lorenzo's infection scare. Victor sat in what had become his usual spot between the NICU and ICU, reviewing Dr. Chen's latest updates on his tablet. Lorenzo was finally gaining weight consistently, and his breathing had stabilized enough to reduce his oxygen support. Coffee? Isabella appeared beside him, holding out a steaming cup from the local cafe, a significant upgrade from the hospital's vending machine offerings. You look like you could use it. Thanks. He accepted the cup, noting the dark circles under Isabella's eyes that matched his own. Any change with Marina? Nothing yet, but Isabella's phone chimed with a text. Her eyes widened. That was Mrs. Rodriguez, Marina's neurologist, called her. They detected increased brain activity this morning. Victor was on his feet instantly, coffee forgotten. What does that mean? They're not sure yet, but it's the first significant change since... She didn't need to finish the sentence. They both remembered the day Marina had fallen into the coma all too clearly. In Marina's ICU room, Dr. Adams, her neurologist, was already reviewing the latest readings. The changes are subtle but promising, she explained, showing them the brain activity charts. We're cautiously optimistic. Victor studied Marina's face, searching for any visible sign of the internal changes the machines were detecting. Her hand lay pale against the white hospital sheets, and for the first time since this all began, he reached for it. The baby's doing better, he told her softly. He gained another 4 ounces this week. Nurse Patel says he's the most determined preemie she's ever seen. He squeezed her hand gently. He gets that from you. A slight flutter against his palm made him freeze. Doctor? Dr. Adams moved quickly to Marina's side, conducting a series of quick tests. Ms. Oliveira, can you hear us? The flutter came again, definitely a finger movement. Victor's heart raced as he watched Marina's eyelids twitch slightly. This is very encouraging, Dr. Adams said, making notes in her chart. Keep talking to her. Familiar voices can help during emergence from a coma. Isabella took Marina's other hand, speaking rapidly in Portuguese. Childhood memories and family jokes that Victor couldn't understand but recognized as love made audible. His phone buzzed with the NICU's number. Lorenzo's due for his afternoon care, he said reluctantly. I should go, Isabella nodded. I'll stay with her. She'd want you with him. In the NICU, Nurse Patel was already preparing Lorenzo's feeding supplies. Perfect timing, Dad. Someone's getting hungry. The full title still gave Victor a warm feeling, even after weeks of hearing it. He settled into the rocking chair, accepting the bottle with practiced ease. Lorenzo's dark eyes, Marina's eyes, focused on him as he ate. One tiny hand wrapped around Victor's finger. Your mom moved her fingers today, he told his son, softly. She's fighting her way back to us, just like you fought off that infection. Between the two of you, I'm learning what real strength looks like. Lorenzo's only response was to gulp his formula more enthusiastically, making Victor smile. These quiet moments of feeding, changing, and simply being present had become sacred to him. His phone still buzzed occasionally with business matters. The board hadn't accepted his resignation, instead granting him an indefinite family leave. But those concerns felt distant now. Mr. Belmont? A nurse he didn't recognize appeared, in the doorway, slightly breathless. You need to come to the ICU, Ms. Oliveira, she's awake. Victor's heart stopped. What? They just extubated her. She's asking for you and the baby. Looking down at Lorenzo, still contentedly feeding, Victor felt torn in two. Nurse Patel stepped forward. We'll finish up here. Go. The elevator ride to the ICU felt endless. When he finally reached Marina's room, he found her propped up slightly, oxygen tubes replaced by a nasal cannula. Her eyes, those incredible eyes, open and alert. Victor, she whispered, her voice hoarse from weeks of disuse. He crossed the room in 3 strides, taking her hand carefully. I'm here. Lorenzo? The fear in her voice was unmistakable. He's perfect, Victor assured her quickly. Getting stronger every day. Just like his mother. Tears filled Marina's eyes. You stayed. I'm not going anywhere, he promised. Not ever again, Dr. Adams interrupted gently. Ms. Oliveira needs to rest, but perhaps... She glanced at the other medical staff. A brief video call with the NICU? Minutes later, Nurse Patel was holding up a tablet, showing Marina her first real glimpse of their son. He's so small, Marina breathed, touching the screen. But mighty, Victor added. He's already survived his first infection scare and his breathing's getting better every day. You know all this, Marina observed, studying his face. You've been here. Every day. Victor swallowed hard. I saw the nursery, the videos, the letters. Understanding dawned in Marina's eyes. You know everything. Not everything, he corrected her. But I'm learning. About strength, about love, about what really matters. He squeezed her hand. You were right about me, even when I was wrong. About myself. Marina's eyes drooped slightly. The short conversation had clearly exhausted her, but her grip on his hand remained firm. Tell me about him, she murmured. Tell me everything I missed. So Victor did. He told her about Lorenzo's first bottle feeding, his strong grip, his preference for being spoken to in Portuguese, thanks to Isabella's daily visits. He described the way their son fought off the infection, how he gained weight gram by precious gram, how he seemed to recognize voices and respond to touch. I watch your videos with him, Victor admitted. So he knows your voice too. Marina's smile was tired but radiant. You're already a wonderful father. I'm trying to be worthy of the faith you had in me, he replied softly. Both of you. A gentle tap at the door revealed Isabella, who rushed to embrace her sister, crying and laughing simultaneously. Dr. Adams followed, ready to conduct more thorough neurological tests now that Marina was more awake. I should get back to Lorenzo, Victor said, reluctantly releasing Marina's hand. His evening care routine. Go, Marina smiled. Take care of our son. The word our carried such weight, such promise. In the NICU, Lorenzo was sleeping peacefully, his vital signs strong and steady. Victor touched the incubator gently. Your mom's awake, champ. She can't wait to meet you properly. Outside the hospital windows, the setting sun painted the sky, in shades of new beginnings. In the ICU, Marina was finally awake, her faith in him vindicated. And here in the NICU, their son continued to grow stronger, proving that sometimes the smallest fighters had the biggest impact. Victor Belmont, who had once measured success in market shares and profit margins, now counted his wealth in heartbeats, smiles, and second chances. The empire he'd spent his life building seemed insignificant compared to the family he was just beginning to know. A family built not on control and power, but on faith, forgiveness, and the kind of love that transforms. 3 days after waking from her coma, Marina sat in a wheelchair beside her hospital bed, determination etched on her face as she worked with the physical therapist. Her muscles, weakened from weeks of disuse, protested every movement, but she pushed through each exercise with unwavering focus. That's enough for today, the therapist advised, noting Marina's exhaustion. You're making remarkable progress, but recovery is a marathon, not a sprint. The NICU is only 2 floors down, Marina argued, her voice stronger than it had been, but still carrying the rasp of recent intubation. I need to be strong enough to see my son. Victor, who had been quietly observing from the doorway, stepped forward. Dr. Chen said maybe tomorrow, if your latest tests come back clear. The past 3 days had settled into a new rhythm. Victor split his time between Lorenzo's care and Marina's room, serving as a living bridge between mother and child. Each night he would tell Marina every detail of Lorenzo's day, his weight gain, his increasing alertness, the way he responded to voices and touch. Show me the new pictures, Marina requested, settling back against her pillows. Victor pulled out his phone, scrolling to the latest photos of Lorenzo. He looks bigger already. Gained another 2 ounces, Victor confirmed proudly. The nurses say he's their star student in the weight gain department. Marina touched the screen gently. His eyes are open in this one. They're like yours, Victor finished. Exactly like yours. He hesitated, then added, I've been reading him the books from your apartment, the Portuguese ones. I probably butcher the pronunciation, but… Marina's eyes filled with tears. You're trying to give him both worlds, like I wanted. I'm trying to give him everything you planned for him, Victor admitted. Everything I should have been part of from the beginning. Before Marina could respond, Dr. Chen appeared in the doorway. I have good news, she announced, reviewing her. Ably, your latest CT scan and blood work both look excellent. If you feel up to it, we can arrange a NICU visit tomorrow morning. Marina's grip on Victor's hand tightened. Really? Really? Dr. Chen smiled. We'll need to take precautions. Mask, gown, limited time. But you can meet your son properly. That night, Victor stayed later than usual in Marina's room, helping her practice moving from the bed to the wheelchair, watching her work through her therapy exercises with renewed determination. When exhaustion finally overtook her, he read to her from the same pregnancy book she'd read during her hospital bed rest, their shared words building bridges across lost time. Morning arrived with a sense of electric anticipation. Victor helped Marina dress in a fresh hospital gown while Isabella arranged her hair, both of them pretending not to notice her tears of frustration when simple movements proved challenging. Lorenzo's already had his morning care, Victor reported, checking his phone. He's awake and alert, perfect timing. The journey to the NICU felt both endless and too quick. Marina gripped the wheelchair's armrests as they approached the washing station, following every sterilization protocol with religious dedication. When they finally entered the NICU proper, she gasped softly at the sight of the incubator where their son lay. Ready? Victor asked gently, positioning her wheelchair. Marina could only nod, overwhelmed by emotion as she got her first real look at Lorenzo. His tiny form moved slightly, one hand reaching up as if in greeting. He knows. His mama's here. Nurse Patel smiled, adjusting his monitors. Would you like to touch him? Marina looked uncertain. Can I? With all the tubes? Here. Victor guided her hand to the incubator's port. Just like this. The moment Marina's finger touched Lorenzo's tiny palm, something electric passed through the room. The baby's fingers curled reflexively around his mother's touch, and Marina's sob of joy seemed to come from somewhere deeper than words could reach. Hi, meu amor, she whispered in Portuguese. Mama's here. I'm finally here. Victor watched them together, his own vision blurring with tears. All the moments he'd thought lost, the pregnancy, the preparations, the dreams of their future, seemed to collapse into this single point of connection between mother and child. Talk to him, he encouraged softly. He loves voices. So Marina did. She told Lorenzo about the stars she'd painted on his nursery ceiling, about the lullabies she'd sung to him during her bed rest, about her dreams for his future. She switched between English and Portuguese, her voice growing stronger with each word. Lorenzo responded to her voice, turning his head slightly toward the sound. His vital signs, displayed on the nearby monitor, showed his contentment through steady rhythms that Victor had learned to read like a second language. You've been taking such good care of him, Marina said to Victor, not taking her eyes off their son. All this time, I had excellent teachers, Victor replied, nodding toward Nurse Patel, and a lot of making up to do. The visit had to end sooner than any of them wanted. Hospital protocols and Marina's still fragile health demanding restraint. But as Victor wheeled her back to her room, something had fundamentally shifted in their shared universe. Thank you, Marina said as he helped her back into bed, for being the father I always knew you could be. Victor sat beside her, taking her hand. I've been watching your video diaries with him every day, showing him how strong his mother is, how much you loved him before either of us knew how much we needed him. Marina's eyes filled with fresh tears. I was so scared you'd never know about him, that my faith in you was just wishful thinking. Your faith changed me, Victor admitted. Seeing our son fight for every breath, watching him grow stronger. Each day, it taught me what real courage looks like, what real love looks like. A soft knock interrupted them, Dr. Chen with Marina's latest test results. Everything looks good, she reported. If this progress continues, we can start discussing your discharge planning soon. Marina's hand tightened around Victor's. But Lorenzo will still be here getting stronger every day, Victor assured her. And so will I. We need to talk about arrangements, Marina said once they were alone again. My apartment. Move in with me, Victor said suddenly. Not just for now, for good. The penthouse has plenty of space. It's closer to the hospital. He paused, gathering courage. And I want us to be a real family, if you'll give me the chance. Marina studied his face, the face she'd never stopped believing in even when he'd stopped believing in himself. Are you sure? Your work? I'm sure about what matters now, Victor replied firmly. You, Lorenzo, us. The rest is just details. Outside, New York City continued its eternal rhythm. In the NICU 2 floors below, their son slept peacefully, growing stronger by the day. And here, in this quiet hospital room, Victor and Marina began to weave together the torn pages of their story into something new, something stronger for having been broken and rebuilt. Tell me about his morning routine again, Marina requested, settling back against her pillows. I want to know everything. So Victor did, painting pictures with words of their son's daily life, watching Marina drink in every detail like water in a desert. Each story was a thread connecting them, binding their fractured past into a future full of promise. In the, soft afternoon light, they began to plan their new life together. Not the life they might have had without the pain and separation, but something deeper, tempered by trial and transformed by love. a life built not on perfect beginnings but on the courage to begin again. Marina stood in the doorway of Victor's penthouse, leaning slightly on her walking cane, taking in the stark modernist design and floor-to-ceiling windows. The contrast between this space and her cozy Brooklyn apartment couldn't have been more dramatic. "I know it's different," Victor said, watching her expression carefully. "We can change anything you want. Make it more." The NICU's rooming-in suite felt like a strange hybrid between hospital and home. Medical equipment shared space with homey touches. A comfortable sofa bed, soft lighting, and family photos Marina had insisted on bringing. Victor wheeled in their suitcase while Marina carefully settled into the rocking chair, both of them watching as Nurse Patel and Dr. Chen prepared to bring Lorenzo. "Remember," Dr. Chen advised, "this is a trial run. We're right outside if you need us, but the goal is to handle everything yourselves. Feeding, monitoring, care routines. Think of it as a dress rehearsal for home." Marina gripped Victor's hand as they brought Lorenzo in. At 2 months old, he'd nearly doubled his birth weight, though he still seemed impossibly small. The supplemental oxygen tube had been replaced by occasional monitoring, and his color was stronger every day. "Ready to spend some quality time with Mama and Daddy?" Nurse Patel cooed as she transferred Lorenzo to Marina's arms. The baby blinked up at them, his dark eyes alert and curious. "The monitors will alert us if there are any concerns," Dr. Chen explained, pointing out the equipment. "But try to trust your instincts too. You know your son." After the medical team left, Victor and Marina found themselves truly alone with Lorenzo for the first time. The responsibility felt enormous. "He's due for a feeding in 20 minutes, Marina noted, checking the schedule they'd memorized. "Should we warm the bottle now or—" A small whimper from Lorenzo interrupted her planning. Within seconds, the whimper became a full cry, their first time handling his distress without nurses nearby. "Hey, buddy." Victor knelt beside the rocking chair, touching Lorenzo's tiny hand. "What's wrong?" Marina shifted him slightly and the crying intensified. "Maybe he's already hungry. The nurses said he might not follow the exact schedule." "I'll get the bottle ready." Victor moved to the prepared station, following the precise temperature and mixing instructions they'd practiced. His hands, once steady in billion-dollar negotiations, shook slightly as he tested the milk on his wrist. Lorenzo's cry grew more insistent. Marina tried to remain calm, remembering their classes about preemie care. "Shh, amor. Daddy's coming with your bottle." The first feeding went smoothly enough, but the real challenges began at midnight. Lorenzo wouldn't settle after his late feeding, his fussing keeping them all awake. Every slight sound sent them rushing to check his breathing, the monitors beeping occasionally with readings that seemed ominous in the dark. "Maybe we should call the nurse," Marina whispered at 2 a.m., dark circles forming under her eyes. "Let's try one more thing," Victor suggested. He grabbed his phone, pulling up Marina's video diary. Soon her recorded voice filled the room, singing a Portuguese lullaby she'd performed during her pregnancy. Lorenzo's cries softened as he heard his mother's familiar song. Marina joined in with her recorded self, her voice harmonizing with the past version as Victor gently swayed with their son. By dawn, they were exhausted but triumphant. They'd handled 4 feedings, 3 diaper changes, and countless moments of anxiety without calling for help once. "You're doing great," Dr. Chen encouraged during morning rounds. "His vitals are perfect, and he's maintaining his temperature beautifully." The second day brought new challenges. Lorenzo spit up an entire feeding, setting off a chain of worried measurements and cleanup. Marina's pain levels increased from the constant movement, forcing her to rely more on Victor. But with each challenge, they found their rhythm, moving around each other with growing confidence. "Remember when you first came to the NICU?" Nurse Patel asked Victor during an afternoon check. "You were terrified to even touch the incubator. Now look at you. Diaper changes, temperature checks, everything." Victor smiled, remembering that first day that felt like a lifetime ago. He'd been a different person then, measuring success in market shares rather than milliliters of formula. The real test came at sunset. Lorenzo's oxygen levels dipped slightly, nothing dangerous but enough to set off a warning beep. Before either parent could panic, Marina remembered their training. Position change, she directed calmly. Victor adjusted Lorenzo's position, and within minutes, the numbers stabilized. "We did it," Marina breathed. "We actually did it." "You've both done more than that," Dr. Chen said from the doorway where she'd been quietly observing. "You've become exactly what Lorenzo needs. Confident, capable parents who work together." That night, as Lorenzo slept peacefully between feeds, Victor and Marina sat on the sofa bed watching their son's chest rise and fall. "Hard to believe we're almost ready to take him home," Marina whispered. "Are we?" Victor asked. "Ready, I mean?" Marina considered this, thinking of their journey. Her lonely pregnancy, the traumatic birth, Victor's transformation, their gradual healing together. "I don't think anyone's ever completely ready for parenthood, but we've learned the important things." "Like what?" "Like how to trust each other, how to face our fears, how to let love be stronger than pride or doubt." She leaned against his shoulder. "How to be a family." Lorenzo stirred slightly, and they both instinctively reached for him, Marina checking his temperature while Victor adjusted his blanket. Their movements were synchronized now, practiced, confident. "One more night," Victor murmured, watching their son settle back to sleep. "Then we can take him home." "To his star-covered ceiling," Marina smiled. "To his room full of books and love and second chances." The night passed in a blur of feedings and diaper changes, of soft songs and gentle touches. By morning, when Dr. Chen arrived for final evaluations, the room felt less like a medical space and more like what it was, a family's temporary shelter on their journey home. "Well," Dr. Chen reviewed her charts with a smile, "I'd say you've more than passed the test. Assuming Lorenzo's final checks come back clear, we can schedule discharge for next week." The words they'd been hoping to hear for so long nearly overwhelmed them. Marina wiped tears from her eyes while Victor held Lorenzo closer as if hardly daring to believe it was real. "We're ready," Victor said firmly, looking at his son and the woman who'd never lost faith in him. "Whatever comes. Next, we're ready to face it together." Outside the hospital windows, New York City sparkled in the morning sun, waiting to welcome its newest family home. In the rooming in suite, surrounded by the tools and toys of their crash course in parenthood, Victor and Marina held their miracle, child, and felt the future unfold before them. Not a future of corporate empires or solitary struggles, but one built on the strongest foundation they knew, love tested by fire and made stronger for the burning. More like a home, Marina supplied, her gentle smile taking any sting from the words. 2 weeks after waking from her coma, her strength was returning daily, though she still tired easily. Exactly. Victor guided her to the living room, where signs of change were already visible. The sleek leather furniture had been supplemented with soft throws and cushions. Family photos, mostly of Lorenzo's progress, had appeared on formerly pristine surfaces. "Isabella helped me with some basics, but I wanted you to make it yours." Marina sank into one of the new plush armchairs, running her hand over its soft fabric. "Where will the nursery be?" "I thought the room next to the master suite." Victor led her down the hallway, supporting her elbow. "It gets the morning sun and—" He pushed open the door, revealing walls already painted a soft yellow that matched Marina's original nursery. "I had Mrs. Rodriguez supervise, said I couldn't be trusted with something this important on my own." Marina's eyes filled with tears as she took in the familiar furniture from her apartment, arranged with care in the larger space. The stars she'd painted on her old nursery ceiling had been professionally recreated here, spanning the entire room, in a glittering constellation. "You brought everything," she whispered, touching the crib rail. "Almost everything," Victor amended. "The rocking chair is new. The old one was—" He hesitated. "Mrs. Rodriguez said it wasn't sturdy enough for long nights with a preemie who might need extra holding." Marina turned to him, recognition dawning. "You've been learning about premature babies and their needs." "I've been taking classes," At the hospital, Victor admitted. CPR, preemie care, monitoring breathing. The nurses say Lorenzo might be ready to come home in a few weeks if his progress continues. The words hung in the air between them, full of hope and terror. Their son, who had never known a world outside the NICU, might soon be theirs to care for completely. "Show me what else you've learned," Marina requested, sinking into the new rocking chair. Victor moved through the nursery with surprising confidence, pointing out the special preemie supplies, the monitoring equipment he'd researched, the organization system for medications and feeding schedules. Each item represented hours of study, preparation, and determination to be ready for their son. "The bathroom's been modified too," he continued, leading her to the master suite. "Rails installed, non-slip mats. The physical therapist said you might need support for a while longer." Marina took in the thoughtful changes, evidence of Victor's attention to not just Lorenzo's needs, but hers as well. "You've thought of everything." "Not everything," Victor corrected. "Just everything I could learn from experts. You're the one who really knows what Lorenzo needs, what you both need." Later that evening, as they shared a quiet dinner overlooking the city lights, Marina broached the subject they'd been dancing around. "What about your work, the company?" "The board's still holding my position," Victor replied. "But I'm not going back to those hours. Not ever. I've restructured everything, delegated most of my direct responsibilities. I'll still be involved in major decisions, but I've found something more important to build." He met her eyes across the table. "When I was sitting in that NICU, watching our son fight for every breath, I realized something. I spent years building an empire of glass and steel, thinking that was strength. Real strength was in your videos, your letters, in the way you faced every challenge alone because I was too afraid to face myself." Marina reached across the table, taking his hand. "Not alone. Not anymore." Their evening was interrupted by a call from the NICU, a nightly update that had become ritual. Lorenzo had gained another ounce. His oxygen levels were holding steady. He'd taken his entire feeding by bottle for the first time. "He's almost ready," Nurse Patel told them. "Have you finished the rooming in preparation?" The rooming in was the NICU's program for transitioning parents to full care of their preemie, a crucial step before discharge. Victor and Marina would spend 48 hours in a special hospital room, caring for Lorenzo under nursing supervision but independently. "We start next week," Victor confirmed, squeezing Marina's hand, "assuming all the tests stay positive." After the call, they stood together at the nursery window, watching the city below. The room behind them was ready, waiting for its tiny occupant. But preparing a space was the easy part. Merging their lives, learning to trust not just each other but themselves as parents, that was the real challenge. "I'm scared," Marina admitted softly. "What if I'm not strong enough yet? What if he needs something and I can't?" "Then I'll be here," Victor promised. "We'll learn together, make mistakes together, figure it out together." A soft chime from Marina's phone interrupted them, a reminder for her evening physical therapy exercises. Victor watched as she worked through each movement with determination, building strength for the days ahead. "I've been thinking," he said as he helped her with her stretches, "about Lorenzo's birth certificate. I'd like to make it official. Give him my name if you're comfortable with that. Make us a real family in every way." Marina's hands stilled on the therapy band. "Victor, not just Lorenzo," he continued quietly. "I want it all, Marina. The sleepless nights, the first steps, the parent-teacher conferences years from now. I want Sunday mornings in this rocking chair and family dinners at that table. I want to finish the story we started." "Even the messy parts?" Marina challenged gently. "The days when nothing goes according to plan? When corporate efficiency meets baby chaos? Especially those parts." Victor knelt beside her chair. "I spent too long hiding from the beautiful mess of real life, running from anything I couldn't control. But you and Lorenzo taught me that the best parts of life are the ones you can't plan for." Marina touched his face, her eyes soft with understanding. "We'll need to repaint the living room. That white won't survive baby handprints. Already ordered samples, Victor smiled. Mrs. Rodriguez is coming tomorrow to help choose colors. She says I have acceptable taste in baby furniture, but can't be trusted with walls. A laugh bubbled up from Marina's chest, a sound of pure joy that seemed to fill the sterile penthouse with warmth. Soon these rooms would echo with infant cries and lullabies, with the chaos of bottles and midnight feedings, with the countless small moments that transformed houses into homes. One day at a time, Marina said softly, echoing the NICU nurse's favorite phrase. One day at a time, Victor agreed, helping her to her feet. Together, they walked the space that would become their family's world, pointing out changes still needed, planning for the life they would build. In the nursery, the painted stars gleamed softly in the city lights. Below them, the crib waited, ready to hold their greatest dream. And in the quiet of the evening, surrounded by evidence of past mistakes and future promises, Victor and Marina began to write the next chapter of their story. Not a perfect tale, but a real one, made stronger by its broken places and sweeter for being hard-won. The day Lorenzo was discharged from Mount Sinai dawned bright and clear, the kind of autumn morning that made Manhattan sparkle. Victor drove with unprecedented caution, hyper-aware of the precious cargo in the specially designed car seat where Marina sat beside their son, her hand never leaving his. The security team swept the penthouse again this morning, Victor mentioned, stopping at a yellow light he would have once rushed through. Air purifiers are running, temperature's perfect, and Mrs. Rodriguez has been cooking enough Brazilian food to feed an army. Marina smiled, recognizing his nervous chatter for what it was, the same anxiety thrumming through her own veins. After 93 days in the NICU, they were finally bringing their son home. The penthouse lobby had been cleared of all other residents, a path carefully orchestrated for Lorenzo's first journey home. As they rode the private elevator, Marina hummed softly, the same Portuguese lullaby that had soothed him during their rooming-in trial. The doors opened to reveal a transformed space. Gone was the stark modernist showcase Victor had once called home. In its place stood a warm, lived-in sanctuary. Family photos lined the walls, Lorenzo's NICU progress, Marina's first time, holding him, Victor learning to give bottles. Beautiful Portuguese phrases had been painted above the nursery door. Com amor, tudo é possível. With love, all is possible. Isabella and Mrs. Rodriguez waited inside, the apartment filled with the aroma of traditional Brazilian comfort food. Welcome home, pequeno guerrero, Mrs. Rodriguez greeted, tears in her eyes as she watched Marina carry Lorenzo into his nursery for the first time. The baby's eyes widened at the star-covered ceiling, twinkling softly in the morning light. Marina settled into the rocking chair while Victor knelt beside them, all three taking in this moment they'd dreamed of for so long. I have something for you, Victor said softly, reaching into his jacket. He pulled out an envelope, handling it with reverence. The official birth certificate came today, Lorenzo Oliveira Belmont. Marina traced the names with her finger, her vision blurring. It's real. All of it's finally real. There's something else too. Victor pulled out a small velvet box. I was going to wait, do something elaborate, but this moment feels right. He opened the box, revealing a stunning, yet understated ring. I love you, Marina. I love our son. I love the family we're becoming. Marry me? Marina looked from the ring to their son, then back to Victor's face. The face that had transformed from corporate mask to devoted father, from stranger to partner. Yes, she whispered. Yes to everything. The moment was interrupted by Lorenzo's hungry cry, a sound that now sparked confidence rather than panic in both parents. They moved in practice synchronization, Victor preparing a bottle while Marina adjusted their son's position. You know, Isabella observed from the doorway, watching them work together. Some people spend years building a family. You three built yours in 93 days. Not built, Marina corrected, accepting the warm bottle from Victor. Found. We found our way to each other. Later that evening, after Isabella and Mrs. Rodriguez had gone home with promises to Return the next day. Victor and Marina sat in the nursery, watching Lorenzo sleep in his crib. The city lights twinkled beyond the windows, matching the stars above. I keep thinking about that phone call, Victor mused. How differently things could have gone if I'd ignored it. If I'd sent someone else to the hospital. But you didn't. Marina squeezed his hand. You came yourself. You stayed. You changed. You changed me, he corrected. You and Lorenzo. You showed me what real strength looks like. A small sound from the crib drew their attention. Lorenzo stirred slightly and both parents tensed, ready for action. But he simply sighed, his tiny hand curling around the edge of his blanket, Marina's handiwork from those long bed rest days. We should get some sleep, Marina suggested. The nurses said to rest when he rests. But neither moved. The moment felt too precious to break. Their first night at home, their little family complete and together. Victor's phone buzzed softly. A text from Davidson about a major market shift in Asia. Once such news would have sent him rushing to his office. Now he silenced the phone without even reading the full message. I used to think I was building something important, he said quietly. An empire of glass and steel. But sitting here, watching our sons sleep, I finally understand what really matters. Marina stood, wrapping her arms around him from behind. Through the windows, dawn was breaking over Manhattan, painting the sky in shades of new beginnings. In his crib, Lorenzo slept peacefully, his breathing strong and steady. The monitors they'd once depended on were gone, replaced by trust in their ability to care for their son. What happens now? Marina asked softly. Victor turned to face her, drawing her close. Now we live our story. The messy, beautiful, unpredictable story of us. No more hiding from love, no more running from what matters. No more perfect plans. Just perfect moments. He smiled, glancing at their sleeping son. Like this one. Lorenzo stirred again, this time with the small whimper that they now recognized as his prelude to waking. Both parents moved automatically to their positions, Marina to the rocking chair, Victor to the bottle warmer they'd practiced using dozens of times. As the sun rose over their first morning at home, the little family fell into their rhythm, not the rigid schedule of Victor's corporate life or the controlled chaos of the NICU, but something new. Something theirs. A dance of three hearts beating in sync, of love tested by fire and tempered by trust, of a future built not on careful plans, but on faith in each other. In his crib below the painted stars, Lorenzo Oliveira Belmont slept safely, watched over by parents who had learned that life's greatest victories aren't won in boardrooms or measured in dollars, but in the quiet moments between heartbeats, in the courage to change, and in the love that transforms strangers into family. Victor and Marina stood together, watching their miracle child, their hands intertwined and their hearts full. Outside, New York City awakened to another day of endless possibilities. But inside this room, under a ceiling of stars, their own possibility had already bloomed into reality. A love story written not in grand gestures or perfect moments, but in the beautiful, breakable, magnificent truth of three hearts finding their way home. When have you faced a moment like Victor, where everything you thought mattered suddenly changed in a single phone call? How did it transform your definition of success? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.